solution architect position in your company today, you're not going to hire any Tom, Dick, and Harry who has completed one of the courses on these online platforms. You're not going to do that. You're going to have your own selection criteria. There are certain deliverables that they will have to stand against and deliver upon. And only then you will make a hiring decision about them. So there seems to be this hustle that we are actually matching the demand in terms of talent supply. It is not actually a race. It's the gap is too much right now. And that will continue to shape the job market. You will have aspirants who will get into the Amit pits of the world to get skilled and have dreams of actually matching up with the genuine talent, if I were to call it, if I were allowed to use that term. So I think that mix and match will continue, that race will continue, but right now the gap is huge. It's tremendous.
But just to stay on that subject, I mean, I'll ask specifically because you are from the HR fraternity rather than I would like jump to Nagaraj. But since Nagaraj has said that, cloud, AI, machine learning, BI, artificial intelligence is taking a lot of populous, has become popular, across needs of users.
Yeah.
Don't you think it's going to kill a lot of jobs in the near future?
Okay, a study. So I've been reading up on this particular front a lot. There is going to be job loss, but there is also going to be job creation. But the job loss, insofar as the current situation goes, is going to be outstripping the job creation by about 40 to 50%. So if 100 jobs are getting lost because of automation, only 50 or 60 jobs will get created because of new avenues opening up because of that automation. So I think it is a lopsided demand versus supply curve. It is a lopsided, it's not looking too bright, if I were to say, sitting where we are with the speed that we are, with the time that we are taking to adopt to this, Shiva. It's slightly gloomy. The picture is slightly gloomy. There is going to be some deprivation of the currently employed lot, which will not have a job in the near future.
But with an element that we are talking about a lot of disruption. We're talking about a lot of new technology, tech stacks evolving over a period of time. There will be huge supply gap demand that we're talking about. But as per the current trend, and based on the global economy, that current situation that we have, which industries, I would ask even Nagaraj to step in here. Which industries, do you think that will have a major impact, and which technologies do you see that will see a boom in the next 3 years, 5-year horizon?
Sure. Let's start from business process outsourcing, the low-hanging fruit that India has so well taken care of since the last decade or 1.5 decades. Let's step back 15 years into our history. Gurgaon flew open into the international market as the business process outsourcing hub, largely driven by GE and their decision to spin off one of their financial services division. What were the accounts receivable, accounts payable associates doing at that time? They used to sit with 2 screens. They used to compare a physical copy of an invoice, and they used to do a manual entry of the invoice entries onto a system that used to ultimately lead to automation. Today, there's a software that sits in place of that associate and recognizes handwriting as long as it is reasonably legible, okay? Deploys artificial intelligence if it is not legible, and then populates the fields, auto-parses into that particular piece. 15 years down the line, this job does not exist anymore. And it used to account for about 80% of the jobs in the financial accounting domain that were created in India, right? So I think every sectors, let's start listing the industries. Business process outsourcing, IT. Not every company today can afford a programmer in India, a programmer worth their salt in India, right? To the extent that at times they start considering Poland a better location to hire engineering talent as compared to India because of the cost. We are talking about IT industry moving to a low-code, no-code kind of a ecosystem wherein the programming capabilities of an engineer are not as relevant as they used to be earlier. If they understand data structures, if they understand algorithms and create algorithms, that's good enough for them to get onto a platform and start programming. Okay, so IT is impacted. Let's talk about automotive sector. The in-cabin entertainment. Look at the cars that are coming in India today. The Mahindra XUV 700 has, and I'm not endorsing anything, but XUV 700 has ADAS features that were unheard of so far, right? It has a sleep alarm. It senses various things in the cabin, and it gives you, and it actually reacts to the human presence in the cabin. So, and where was it created? It was created here. So automotive got disrupted in a big manner, right? Autonomous driving, edtech. Let's take a look at edtech. Augmented reality is being deployed in a big manner in edtech sector today. Okay, it started off with Byju's. Now there are other companies. There are so many companies that have jumped onto the bandwagon to ensure that kids are learning experientially by stepping into an augmented reality ecosystem, right? Insurance, the artificial intelligence models that have been created to detect fake versus genuine claims, right? They are being deployed in big measure. And I'll talk more about it later on, but I think the question to ask would be which component of today's third revolution generated technology is untouched by automation?
Your view, Mr. Nagaraj, on this?
Yeah, I think as Manan pointed out, the exponential technologies have impacted virtually every industry that exists in the planet. Of course, the early adopters were retail, transportation, logistics. And then, for example, healthcare was a little bit of a slow adopter because these technologies have certain degree of accuracy because it makes a lot of predictive modeling. And in healthcare, depending on the type of application, your level of accuracy has to be extremely high. For example, if you are creating a technology that goes into medical devices that control flow of medicine into the patient, and if your technology is not foolproof enough, you kill the patient. Versus, in other industry, even if there is a malfunction or even if the degree of error is a little bit higher, it still would not create a significant problem for that industry, right? So that is how you will see more of an adoption that is different for different industries. But healthcare has seen significant change over the last 2 years, especially driven by the pandemic, right? If you look at teleconsultation, was never heard of. There were a lot of apps in India that were making appointment booking with doctors, but there were not really teleconsultation. There were not really digital patient engagement platforms, right? Now they have mushroomed so well, and doctors have adopted to the new technology, and digital healthcare is now become more prominent as a way of delivering capability in a manner that we have not seen before. And what used to be a traditional medicine or what is purely biological is now biotech. That means you have personalized genetic medicine, and companies are today delivering nuclear and precision medicine. I mean, as a matter of fact, Cardinal Health has a big portfolio of capability around radio pharmacies and nuclear pharmacies delivering those precision medicines. And those are the areas that were not touched in the past. So automation, again, has impacted, but to earlier question that you had around how does it impact on the job? Well, I think everybody feared in the past that automation will take away a lot of the jobs, but to the contrary, new jobs were created in an adjacent area, right? Not necessarily in those manual, repetitive work, and which is why we always said, historically, people were like bots, and they were doing repetitive tasks, and the automation, especially with the advent of robotic process automation, the call to action was, let's take the bot out of the human and let us commit the human to do more intelligent tasks that require decision making, that require the usage of your brain. And this is where you have gone through an evolution in the automation space. Automation isn't new. We have historically been doing scripting, doing things that are unattended by human being with a lot of coding. And then we have started to look at this RPA, robotic process automation, which is a software robot, right? And hardware robots were used in the factory to do things that the human might see a problem because of the safety and hazardous environment that exists, and bots can do the work there. I mean, hardware robots, but the software robots really mimicked the way how the person does in terms of the key strokes that he does to get into an application doing the work. And then we started to look at intelligent automation as the next step. That is really about reading unstructured data, such as your PDFs, Adobe documents, and take the data from faxes and PDFs and convert them into a more structured data. And then a lot of organizations have started to go into cognitive automation, which is where you embed AI in the way how you start a particular process, and it has the capability to make the right decision, including predictive capability, next best action, which is even impossible for human being to process and synthesize. So clearly, the types of jobs have changed, but I think in general, jobs itself hasn't reduced. But the call to action for the workforce really is to upskill and reskill. And India is doing a lot of effort. In fact, NASSCOM is working very collaboratively with the government and private learning solutions organizations to upskill so that you are more employable. We have a lot, to the Manan's point, we have a lot of people that have basic degrees and engineering background, but they may not be fully employable in the new age requirement. And I think there is a lot of upskilling and reskilling that is required, both online and offline. I think more gearing towards domain knowledge, design thinking, building an agile mindset. And more importantly, when you work in very specialized industries such as healthcare, you need to develop what we call as human-centered design, because the technologies will resonate with how humans would consume it.
But with an element that, thanks that, both of you echoed or my thought that every industry will go, the jobs which are repetitive will fade off over a period of time, which bots will continue to do. But there will be a lot of jobs that will be created in the Indian geography. But having said that, on a lighter note, on your, with low code, no code coming in, and a lot of bots doing medical work, do you see no need for doctors?
I think let me give a quote, right? Radiology was the area that was highly disrupted by AI, and the message there is very simple. I think it appeared in prominent newspapers in the recent past as well. While AI cannot replace a doctor who uses AI will lead, and a doctor who doesn't use AI will be replaced by a doctor who uses AI.
Fantastic. So, but I think given that context, sorry to cut across, but given that context, I want Mr. Manan to step in here. See, there's a lot of demand supply gap, as rightly said by Nagaraj, with regards to doctors, not adopting to AI will fade out, and a doctor adopting to AI will continue in their profession. But having said that, how is the market today going to react to the demand supply gap that we have, and what are the steps that the job seekers need to take in terms of to find the right jobs for them?
So when you say the market, I'll qualify the market into two categories. One would be the organizations which are deploying these technologies. The other market, unfortunately, we call it a market today, would be the education system, right? Let me split this question into these two parts, okay? The corporates are going to chase their profits, okay? And automation makes a lot of sense. In fact, it makes a borderline organic sense to automate low-end tasks. So I'm not too worried about adaptation of automation by the organizations and the corporate sector. It makes business sense to them. It will happen. I'm worried about the supply and the education system ramping up to brace up for this need. Okay, the organizations are going to shift. So jobs are going to go away, right? That's one part of the equation that is definite because it's related to the stock market. The other part is not related to the stock market and hence has lower focus and lower energy or lower entropy to generate the kind of creativity that is needed. You don't find artificial intelligence solution providers easily. How will you find teachers? Because a teacher in India, unlike the Nordic countries, is always going to get paid 1/5 or 1/20th of what an engineer gets paid, despite the fact that they are training engineers, right? So a person who has that skill set is never going to get into the market of academics. They're going to get into the market of corporates, right? So this is one of the reasons why, and this is the reality from which a lot of my pessimism around this entire piece comes, right? Unless until there is a selfless, high on quality push that is made across the engineering colleges in India to embed artificial intelligence, machine learning, programming skills at a much earlier level, right? Unless that happens, I don't think there's too much hope. And I'm sorry to be coming across, I'm a human resource guy, I should be sounding positive. But at the same time, I think it's more important to sound realistic. I can be positive when things start turning around. But this is where I think the market is going to...
I'll slightly shift the gears,
Yeah.
I mean, to stay on the context, I would still allow you to speak after my question. As
Sure.
Mr. Nagaraj has said, upskilling, reskilling, and with the new NEP policy, a lot of things are going to come, and like low code, no code, which is going to become a little, I mean, we're a little away from implementing it across industries, but I think we're getting there. In fact, today Microsoft announced low code implementation in one of their Visual Studios today. So I think having said that, how do you think that the job seekers, particularly the job seekers, as a job aspirant, I mean, I'll probably pass on this question to both of you because both of you are in search of talent. But how do you think the job seekers need to prepare for themselves for getting into jobs and right jobs?
Maybe I'll start.
Nagaraj.
As I mentioned, reskilling and retooling is an important element, right? And job seekers today have a great opportunity. NASCOM partner with Future Skills to create an environment. It's a government-sponsored program as well. If you are in IT doing traditional set of activities and you want to move yourself into the digital bandwagon, there are opportunities for you to upskill. Obviously, there are a lot of online content, but then there is also opportunity for you to take advantage of full offline course with a mentor, so you can prepare yourself and change your trajectory a little bit, because your foundation in IT skills across the historical technology or legacy technology will still help you. So that's a way how you can change your course. And then there are also people that are currently not in the IT industry, but in other industry that have a flair for learning, can upskill themselves. This is not a rocket science. It's all that you need is a determination, because today information is available abundantly. You can get a lot of courses directly from YouTube, as an example, right? Either you teach or YouTube teaches to your kids today. And the learning has become so pervasive. Of course, discipline is an important element if you want to upskill yourself to learning platform. The learning platforms have made significant inroads into everybody's learning priority today. But again, not many times it is up to the individual to unlock what is available to them and the discipline that you create for yourself to make that change. There are several examples that I have personally seen and I have helped people to navigate from a legacy technology to a new age disruptive technology and shining all throughout using those foundations. And clearly, people need to look at the way in which they can enrich themselves. Today, technology is not for just IT. Technology has become so pervasive, and which is where this low-code, no-code platform is leading to what we call as a citizen-led development community, right? And today, if you have an RPA platform in the company, you don't need an IT professional to code a bot. The bot can be developed by somebody in finance or HR or other business process groups. And in fact, what I say many times to our team is that it is oftentimes easier to have these business process owners learn the technology and do their own bot than having an IT professional to learn the business process and then do the bot. Because the first one is much more faster and easier. And whereas the technology-led organization is focusing on providing the right platform and management of how it is secure when it is put into production. And that is why the requirement of digital IQ or digital fitness is required across the company. Most modern companies, we are a 50-year-old legacy manufacturing and distribution company in medicines, but we're turning ourselves to digital. And we have a digital U, which is important for every employee in the organization. Then we have the intermediate and digital college, which is targeted to more people that want to create a career for themselves in the technology. But the digital IQ, the digital fitness is the most basic need of any employee, regardless of what job and role that you are in the company. So I think ultimately what I'm trying to say is that the job seekers have the opportunity to become mainstream digital contributors and ultimately become a digital worker. All that it requires is a determination to learn and make the change that is required.
Mr. Manan,
just to add some context to Nagaraj's inputs. If you were to today lay out the technology heat map globally, right? There are two centers which are going to hit your eyes upfront. One is the US, obviously because of their Silicon Valley initiatives. The second is India. The biggest technology pool, the massiveness of the technology pool in India is second only to the US. Now, let's not just stop here. Let's look at the next data point. China has a technology talent presence, which is half of India. Philippines has 1/6 of India. Okay. Vietnam languishing somewhere at the bottom. The context is this, that we already have a massive talent pool, which if reskilled will allow us to actually massively outgun the global technology talent pool competition. So we are there. Discipline and will is the piece that I see missing. I think with that added to the mix, we'll continue our supremacy. Of course, second only to the US. At some point, we'll overtake US also. But this is what I would like to put on the table. India has a massive pool, and if we can pivot successfully, then yeah, I think.
But an element that I'm a very optimist, in my life as well. With a lot of disruption in technology, people talking about low code, no code coming in, which is going to be some estimate says a multi-billion-dollar business. I don't recollect the figures, but it's somewhere going to about $22-23 billion business in the Indian geography or global geography. But I think with an element of reskilling, upskilling of candidates happening, and he or she are getting job ready. But don't you think, from an industry point of view, Mr. Nagaraj, if you can answer this, and probably Manan, your view after that, with technology disruption like low code, no code, they're talking last 2 years, but it's gone live, I think, in 2022. Don't you think the job market is going to shrink? Because you don't need programmers to actually do your coding.
Yeah, I think the way that it needs to be looked at is you have to look at the way how technologists view their skill set and future skills that is needed. And if you look at the data point, in a digital transformation, 10% is about technology and 90% is about people enablement, culture, communications, change management, right? So the technology has become pervasive, as I mentioned. Citizen-led development happens. And in fact, I have worked in organizations that have basically said, I can do IT better than the IT people, right? And it is true because employees have become power users of technology. Now, if you want to remain relevant as an IT professional, then what you need to really do is build these business skills and the domain skills. And I always talk to my team saying that it is not good enough to be an IT professional. You got to be a healthcare IT professional if you want to work for healthcare industry. What do I mean by that is you got to understand the business. You got to be able to look at technology, making a change in the business model and innovate on the way that we have built the foundation, right? And how do you look at the next big thing? And that is exactly why I called out earlier about the new age skill, along with the technology skill, is the way in which you can do customer journey mapping. It's more about looking at human-centered design thinking, and an agile mindset. It's not, a lot of people think that I understand Scrum, so I am a Scrum certified, so I am an agile practitioner. Agile is a mindset. It's not a technology or a framework.
But sir, with the element that, sorry to cut across, but I'm very curious. We have moved from a stage where we were driving SDLC to DevOps to Agile. But where is the market getting to in terms of, we have moved away from the SDLC cycle completely. And there's a DevOps environment now that has been created, and we're talking about Agile. But just to stay on the context, if you can throw us light for about 2-3 minutes, that'd be great for the audience.
Sure. I think a lot of the people who have historically used the waterfall SDLC methodology started in the old school of thought where I have all the requirements clearly documented at the beginning of the project. So then I will have the schedule and time that is really created. So it was then the three-dimensional at that point in time. Am I delivering 2 spec on time within schedule? And waterfall was a good way to do it. But then as you move towards the new age environment, customers are demanding and changing their requirements very often. And you cannot take a year worth of planning and implementing systems and solutions. You are fully outdated in the market, which is where this agile mindset comes into play, where I think about what is the most important thing that I need to release in the next week or 2 weeks or 1 month, so that I can get into the market faster than my competition, right? So that's how you build the agile mindset of releasing in pieces that makes the most impact in the marketplace. And that's how the concept of agile came into picture. And then you have the methodologies. You have Scrum, you have extreme programming, and you have Kanban. They're more of the methodologies for implementing agile. And then there are also cases where agile itself doesn't do it. Now we also have the combination of agile and waterfall, and we call it as agile fall. You initiate the project with waterfall, then you do the iterative development, and then you close the project with the waterfall methodology, right? And the DevOps really evolved over the significant adoption of cloud, right? And the way that you are looking at is that in the past, there is a clear wall between development and support or the operations. And oftentimes they were not very synchronized. Now with the DevOps concept, we are ensuring that there is a continuous integration and continuous development. And in a way that you are making releases more often. Oftentimes you will see a lot of big technology OEMs releasing on a daily basis or even hourly basis the updates, versus it used to be once in a quarter or once in 6 months, right? I think you are seeing that agility comes into play, and which is why when we talk about employees and specifically doing work in India for global market, historically people have talked about doing it better, cheaper, faster in India. And I say that better, cheaper, and faster isn't the hallmark that we need to look at. It should be agility, precision, and speed. Those should be replaced from where we were talking about faster, cheaper, and better.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't find any cost arbitrage at this point of time that there is India is a cheaper market. But I think Manan, if I was to move to you, what's your view on what Mr. Nagaraj has said?
I think, generally everyone is going to agree with what he has stated. This is a no-brainer, the way I see it. I think.
No, I want.
But at the same time, so let's talk about
I want specific. Yeah. Your viewpoint from a HR angle point of view.
Sure. What he has talked about, the migration from the waterfall model to agile model, everyone knows that it makes sense. But if you look at the teams which have been groomed right from the first day of their career on the waterfall methodology, you would see the kind of struggle that they have to go through, the kind of frustration that they feel when they are migrated to an agile model. Okay. We encounter that as human resource professionals, we encounter that. You are not going to first reach out to your human resource function if the engineering function has decided that they are not going to follow the waterfall method, but they are going to go agile. HR is not the first person. However, we do get to hear about the murmurings that happen in engineering meetings, right? We get to know that engineers feel straight-jacketed by the agile micromanagement, if they were to use that word, the stories. So I think the human factor is that change is never welcome. If you are indoctrinating the change mindset, then the pain reduces significantly, but the unrest stays. I think that's what machines will not have. Okay, and that's why low code, no code is here to stay. I can speak about it because the organization that I work for currently, they seem to be at the cutting edge of a low code, no code solution in the domain of artificial intelligence and machine learning models. So we are already trying to build we already have a product called AI Studio. You don't have to be a C++ programmer or a Python or an R programmer to create a wonderful model.
Yeah, but with an element that somebody has to know data structures, knowing what is an array is important, but it still requires some fundamentals, right?
It does. Algorithmically, there is no way. If you can't be a great programmer, language is just a tool, but algorithm is the mindset. So we can't compromise with the algorithmic capabilities of engineers. That is not going to change in the future.
But tell me one thing. I will again give, since we have time, but I know I would like to debate on this. But why do you think there's so much amount of digital transformation, disruptive technologies? I am hearing or listening to a few technology stacks which I haven't heard last year. But overall, if you ask me, I will ask Nagaraj to step in here, and then probably Manan can take over. Why is that the digital transformation is going to be a game changer for the future?
Yeah, I think digital is the future. It is now a boardroom agenda, and I'll tell you why, right? A lot of companies that are not digitally born are looking at changing the way how they think about the application of digital. And it's really require a change in mindset. And it requires more collaborative effort, which is why I say that digital is more about collaboration on steroids, is the way how I look at it, right? And use cases are the currency of digital transformation. And as I mentioned earlier, while you're moving from third industrial revolution to fourth industrial revolution, if you can't move from third industrial revolution to fourth industrial revolution, you're not only going to fall behind, but you are going to be fully threatened with your existence in the first place if you are a brick and mortar company. So it does not matter which industry you are, right? From construction to consulting to any industry that you look at, have to have the digital in their mind, because a lot of the traditional companies are going to be seeing competition coming from technology company. And to the point that Manan was talking about earlier, businesses have become algorithmic. So all businesses are algorithmic. And the proof point for that is a lot of disruption that we have seen in transport and in accommodation, right? I mean, if you talk about Uber is a technology company, and they're not a transport company, right? And the largest transport company does not have their own fleet. And what do? They use algorithms to connect the vehicles and the drivers with the passengers. And you talk about other disruptors that have done the same thing. I mean, Netflix, for example, made video cassettes fully out of date, and content is delivered on demand. So the bottom line is, if you are not thinking about digital, you are going to die. It's either do or die. I mean, think about companies that have not looked at digital photo versus using historical camera. They're wiped out. And companies that have not looked at digital as an opportunity have not only kept behind themselves, but they've gone out of business. So if you don't think about digital, you're not relevant as a leader. You're unfit to be occupying the top management position in any company. So digital has the power to change your business model. And oftentimes when I talk to candidates that I interview and I ask them, there's so much buzz around digital transformation. People say, I'm doing digital transformation. Tell me, what is digital transformation? How do you define digital transformation? 99% of the people don't give me the right answer. All that they say is, I'm doing data, I am doing ERP, I'm doing this automation, that automation. I said, we've been doing that for 20 years or more. How is digital different? I think digital is really about embedding these exponential technologies, the 7 or 8 of them that I mentioned earlier, into your products and services, the way how you work, the way how you interact with your customers. So they become backbone of your products and services. So it impacts your top line, it impacts your bottom line. Versus the technological advancement that we have historically done has largely contributed to the bottom line versus the top line. I mean, with the exception of a few cases. But today, digital is impacting your top line. It can add 10%, 15% revenue opportunity for the company, any industry, right? I think that is the power of digital. So you can't escape talking about digital in the boardroom. And if boards are asking these questions, regardless of which industry they sit in, as to how are you thinking about this? And I think that is how
your view, Manan, on this.
I'll just add to what Nagaraj has said. Digital is not about technology. And I totally empathize with him when he says that 99% of the people think it is about transformation and looking as if you have entered the matrix. That's not what it is about. Digital transformation is about the user experience. Okay, ultimately, that's what matters. So let me give you an example. As a human resource guy, I have to compare quotes of medical insurance providers. One of the questions that I ask as a qualifying criteria is, what is the turnaround time on a claim settlement? Shiva, based on your experience, and Nagaraj, you're also welcome to answer this question. Based on your experience, what is the fastest turnaround time for a claim settlement that you have seen in your life?
No, I think these days I have seen up to 2 hours.
3.5 years back, I was comparing the quotes of 2 of the leading medical insurance providers. And the number that I saw was 3.2 seconds.
Wow.
That was 3.5 years back, Shiva. Okay. All the person had to do was to upload, take the snaps, not physical copies of the documents that have been physical copies you can give later on. You just take the snaps on the app that has been integrated with their insurance portal. You take the snaps, upload the snaps, image verification happens automatically. And if they belong to a certain category of diseases, the automation has taken care of the entire claim settlement lifecycle and have condensed it to 3.2 seconds. With those kind of claim settlements, I'm sure that my employees are not going to be unhappy when they engage with an insurance team. Okay. And that's where I say digital is not about the technology. Well, it is about the technology if you are a technologist. But if you're in the business of business, it is about your end user and how you make life simpler for your end user through their user experience being enhanced. So I think the answer to this question is it is a battle of survival, Shiva. Insurance agents are not the biggest asset of insurance companies today. Technology backbone is. So,
well, see, I mean,
yeah.
I'm with an element that, I mean, we are saying that digital disruptive technologies or digital transformation is going to stay within the Indian geography. I mean, job seekers need to upgrade their skills. They have to be digitally ready to get to employment. But fundamentally, if I was to ask, last, especially post pandemic, post COVID, and especially this year, FY22 and the subsequent years, what are the drivers you think that is driving this madness about disruptive technologies or digital transformation? Nagaraj?
Yeah, as I mentioned,
I know you're not prepared for this question, but I thought I'll insist because a lot of things are happening on the medical side. So I am very curious.
Shiva, I think Nagaraj has already answered that question.
Yeah.
But
so
still,
let me amplify that a little bit because I think COVID has really accelerated certain industry. Healthcare is one of them. I think there was a joke that was going on in WhatsApp, right? Who drove digital transformation in your company? CEO, CIO, CTO, or COVID? And the answer was resounding COVID, right? So digital transformation was actually led by COVID because it was based on the necessity. And as we all know, the mother of invention is the necessity, and necessity has driven the requirement across the industry, whether you are doing an online shopping, which wasn't new, right? But you are trying to give more and more personalized experiences in the retail industry. In the medical side, right from teleconsultation to a lot of AI-driven radio imaging that create a prediction. In fact, I went through a medical test just recently based on a predictive analytics based on a lot of radiology tests to see whether I would have prediction of any chances of cancer or other unwanted growth in the body, right? And they are based on the prediction models and diagnostic reporting, which uses AI to predict. And they have more accuracy level than the doctor. The way that it does is when radiology looks at, when the AI looks at the radiology report, it not only puts the patient that is at the highest risk on the top of the file so that the doctors can see them fast enough, but also it provides a lot of recommendations. And just to give you a perspective, a doctor cannot spend more than 15 minutes with the patient based on the number of doctors to the patients. It's a worldwide number. And in India, it is even skewed for the population that we have. Now, how can you maximize the value of that 15 minutes with the doctor? You can apply a lot of this technology so that doctor does not have to look at the historical conventional way of diagnosing the data, but can technology aid him to narrow down to few choices so you can make the quick decision. And the research says very clearly that a lot of people die or people have diseases not cured is not because of unavailability of treatment. It is because of the wrong diagnosis. right? And this technology can make a significant contribution in the way how the right diagnosis can happen. And I think that is where it not only has the power to make a change in the financial industry where money is moved, but I think it has a lot more value in unlocking how we can become better from a health perspective on an ongoing basis. And another proof point, which is a problem today because of a lot of regulation that exists in multiple countries. We don't have an electronic health record or an electronic medical record. And oftentimes, people, that's always a joke, right? A doctor prescription can only be read by a pharmacist and nobody else. And if it is all done in an electronic format, and if you look at, let's say a lot of people say India is the diabetic capital. And if you have all of the treatment history and the diagnosis history recorded across millions of patients, you will be able to identify a digital medicine that can clearly a sure shot cure to manage your lifestyle diseases or even chronic diseases. So technology has a lot of power to solve the problem, just like how we have implemented and made a lot of success on the India stack. On the financial inclusion in India, I think there's a lot of opportunity to do that with digital health. And there's already a national digital health mission and a technology stack that is being built today to help unveil that vision in the future. But I think digital or disruptive technologies have a lot of play, not only in the financial inclusion, but also in the wellness of the people.
And your view, Manan, before I step into the last set of questions, which is outside the syllabus?
See, you already know, Shiva, 2% of the world population runs the remaining 98%. Okay. Mm-hmm. And automation is making a lot of sense to this 2%. Okay. Right from investment portfolios to predicted outcomes of business forays, simulations. I think as long as automation has the promise of pushing up the top line and pulling down the bottom line, and I personally feel that those are akin to the laws of gravity or Newton's laws of motion in the world. So as long as those don't change, I don't think digital is going to be killed by anything. I think it is going to be a harbinger of very different times from the ones that we have known so far. And it makes business sense. I think I'll rest my case at that particular line, Shiva.
Yeah, I mean, with an element that, we spoke close to an hour, talking about, digital transformation is going to be the future, how job seekers need to prepare themselves by reskilling, upskilling. We also said about why industry, is taking up the phase of digital transformation and what is driving the digital transformation. But purely from an industry point of view, what NASSCOM has reported that the Indian job market is going to grow from 5 million to 10 million over the next 5 years. And there will be a lot of jobs created, which is very evident as told by both of you. But specific to your industries, how do you think the outlook for FY23 is going to be? Because there's a lot of speculation which surrounds that, global banks, are going to reduce, or the GCCs are going to reduce their hiring. But specific to your industry, how do you think the FY23 outlook is going to be?
I think, if you look at the GCC market, it was said by NASSCOM and in partnership with consulting companies that GCCs will add about at least 200,000 or 2 lakh jobs over the next year to 18 months. I think every GCC that I know of is hiring, and they're hiring in these disruptive technologies that we talked about. Because the reason for that is the global change and the global transformation that is required, and GCCs are playing a major role in those business model innovation that will require the companies to stay afloat and then expand into the areas that they need to make inroads. But in general, yes, we are seeing a lot of inflation that is continuing to happen in the industry. Not only the labor market, but if you look at logistics and supply chain issues that happen post-pandemic, I think pandemic has also reduced the number of people coming into the workforce. People have taken different jobs or a different profession altogether. So I think those labor market challenges continue to exist. But if I were to talk about the industry that I represent, healthcare is an evergreen industry, right? So whether it is pandemic or no pandemic, people are going to be sick and they need help and they need therapies. And in fact, as we find more and more medicine, you will see more and more diseases uncovered and not known, just like how COVID was detected as a virus, while we have seen a lot of viruses in the past. So clearly, healthcare need to change significantly faster, catching up with other industries that have used digital technologies. And I think digital medicine, digital healthcare are the buzzword today. If you talk to any company that is in that business, whether you are in the payer, provider, manufacturer, so whether you are an insurer, whether you are a pharmacist, whether you are a healthcare provider, or whether you are the health manufacturers of devices or pharma. I think everybody is looking at it. Everybody is looking at a lot of digital solutions. I mean, as a company, we supply a lot of digital technology capabilities along with the real medicines.
So you are saying that the job market is going to be upbeat irrespective of the macroeconomics. What about your view, Manan? Last viewpoint before
absolutely cutthroat. Absolutely cutthroat. I belong to the creme de la creme of the IT industry in terms of what I'm representing here. The semiconductor school, artificial intelligence, hardware enablement of artificial intelligence at the edge, artificial intelligence deployed for paramedical purposes. Shiva, you are welcome to sit with my recruitment team for a day. And
sure.
That should actually give you a first-hand exposure to what we are looking at.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we've just crossed the time. I think with all due respects, I think thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you, Nagaraj. Thank you, Manan. I think I had a great interaction and it was really heartening to know. I look forward to speak to you offline and we will connect. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Shiva.
Thanks, Nagaraj. Thanks, Shiva. We're connecting with all of you. Thank you.